Hey, gang, is a Bitcoin boom on the horizon? You may not have seen this, but we're now getting reports that among the flurry of executive orders that President Trump will be signing on day one of his presidency, he's expected to issue a number of EOs regarding cryptocurrency. This is amazing stuff. Now, according to a report from the Washington Post, among the executive orders that Trump is expected to deliver on day one include those addressing debanking and another one that repeals a cryptocurrency accounting policy that requires banks that hold digital assets to count them as liabilities on the institution's balance sheet. Now, as you know, Trump became a major proponent of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general during his 2024 campaign. In fact, back in May, he became the first major party candidate to accept cryptocurrency donations, which by the end of July netted him, if you could believe it, $4 million in cryptocurrency donations. Not a bad move on his part, huh? He, of course, delivered the keynote address at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville we all told you about, where he vowed to make the United States, and this is what he said, quote, I love this, the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world. I think Elon Musk has gotten to him, don't you think? So what should we expect in the first 100 days of his administration, particularly for Bitcoin? Are we going to see a price surge? And is now the time to finally take a dip into the Bitcoin waters if you haven't done so? Joining me today is Abdullah Nassif of Good Morning Crypto. This is a program that I love. This is a Twitter feed I follow each and every day. You'll definitely want to subscribe by clicking on the link below. Follow him on X as well. Abdullah, welcome. It's great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this for a long time now.
Thank you so much. And lucky for us, we get to celebrate the era of digital assets inside the United States today. And I'm going to be providing some evidence for your listeners. So thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
It's an honor to have you, Abdullah. I'm curious, just as a fan, as a guy who eats, sleeps, and drinks this stuff, as a crypto enthusiast, what are you most excited about in the next, in what's to come?
You know, what's really interesting is that a lot of people have centered their attention on Bitcoin, but my belief, and I believe something that's unique about our channel, is we focus on the evolution of the financial system. So the next era for our financial system is on blockchains. And we're seeing the largest companies on the planet, whether it's BlackRock, JP Morgan, Fidelity, or Goldman Sachs, all four of those companies have become pro-crypto. And we're going to see a lot more of that in the first 2 quarters of 2025.
I love it. Absolutely love it. We talk about techno-populism all the time on this channel. The way the new technologies that are emerging are basically emancipating populations from the old industrialized structures. Even Web 2.0 is going its way. Web 3.0 is coming. You've got our first ever crypto czar, David Sachs. You've got Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. She's introducing a new bill in Congress. It's a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act. That would involve, I believe, the United States owning 1 million Bitcoin, which would be 5%, right, of all Bitcoin. From your vantage point, just practically speaking, can you flesh out the significance of that?
So here is what I'm talking about. The golden age of digital assets has already arrived. And we got there on November 5th with the election of Donald Trump. Something I'm sure you'd appreciate, Dr. Turley, is that on our channel, after that assassination attempt in July, we made a major shift to being pro-Donald Trump for several reasons. First of all, for his pro-crypto policies. But second of all, I'm an American, and I have the perception of America first. I was born and raised in this country, and that's something that I'd like to hold true. As a 27-year-old living in America, it seems like a lot of the opportunities for our generation are hyper-suppressed. And you had a great conversation before we went on air about how our generation in particular is lacking trust in the traditional system. That is exactly where cryptocurrencies enter the conversation. And there's 2 major catalysts that Donald Trump has been very outspoken about. The first is what you've already mentioned with the National Bitcoin Reserve, which from my perspective opens the door for many of these other assets. But the second major catalyst for the industry could be tax-free for American crypto assets. We are talking about 0 capital gains being paid. And not only has Donald Trump said this on several platforms, his son, Eric Trump, has doubled down at an event in Dubai, stating that this is something in the works right now.
I saw that. I saw that live, which was really, I think it was live, time difference, but yeah, I saw it on X, of course. That was a really, really neat conference. Were you there? Were you able to go to that?
I wish.
Oh yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to make that our point next year in the age of crypto, which would be
Right.
absolutely amazing. But no, I think you're so right. This is representing a coming of age, as it were, of a whole new cyberspace reality that's replacing the old industrialized structures that our government and our government's policies are still stuck in. But yeah, the idea of just like no taxing on investment in crypto. I mean, that'd be insane. I mean, just incredible. With some of these, we mentioned BlackRock, Michael Saylor, of course. I mean, he's just become this amazing apologist for Bitcoin just in the last, I think, 4 years, right? 3 or 4 years. He's kind of a Johnny come lately who's mastered it brilliantly. But analysts are predicting that Bitcoin's price is about to go through the roof. You and I were kind of talking off a platform here, and you were giving me a sense that yeah, we might be seeing something akin to Elon's rockets. Are we about to see a price explosion here?
There are so many positive catalysts that I don't want to bore your listeners, but I'm going to list a couple of the major ones. We are pre-crypto regulation, pre-national Bitcoin reserve, pre-pro SEC chairman. So right now we're dealing with Gary Gensler, who coincidentally or not, resigns the same day Donald Trump steps into office. So that's going to be a massive day for a lot of reasons. But you brought up something important, and I wanted to make sure that I addressed it. When it comes to the national reserve for Bitcoin, the reason that is so important is because it sets the standard globally for not only other governments, but other central banks and financial institutions to use Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. Yeah. Everybody, whether you're 55, 85, or 25, has felt the effects of the infinite printing since 2020. And I'm sure you're aware of this stat, but I'd love to double it down for our listeners. 60% of all US dollars in circulation today were printed post 2019. That tells you everything you need to know. Things are more expensive than ever. And lucky for us as Bitcoin and broader crypto investors overall, that is working in our favor. Last quick comment here. It has been less than 12 months since we saw a Bitcoin spot ETF approved in the United States. Since that time, we witnessed the price go from $43,000 upwards of $108,000 at the peak of the market. I believe we're entering an even more bullish era with the launch of this national reserve, as well as crypto tax policies becoming pro-crypto.
And it seems to have really stabilized in the 90s at this point, right? Like just before 90,000. So, which again is, like you said, that's 2x what that's 200% more than what it was just a year ago, if I recall. Am I getting my figures right? You'll know this off the top of your head.
Of course, your figures are accurate as usual. And you know what's really interesting is that I think your listeners may appreciate some of this data as well. There is currently a bill called SOB 121 that was already passed through the House. And what's so important about this is that bill requires banks to hold digital assets as a liability on their balance sheets. And you had referenced this earlier in the episode. I'd love to double down on that right now because President Trump is expected to issue several executive orders related to crypto policy. And it appears this is the number one issue that is going to be dealt with on January 21st.
Yeah. I mean, it's happening so fast. This is even beyond the Senate bill that's out there to create the crypto reserve. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, we got 100 days, no big deal, because it'll take some time to make its way through the Senate. And then I read today, no, he's coming out of the gate running on Bitcoin and on crypto. It's he's making it clear a new age is really happening. It's really dawning on January the 20th. It's pretty astonishing. I was curious your take on the notion of other countries getting involved. Of course, Nayib Bukele has been rocking it down in El Salvador. But I'm hearing China now is starting to reconsider particularly Bitcoin and crypto and so forth. What's the geopolitical significance here of crypto?
You know, what's interesting is that right now, China has actually banned the mining of Bitcoin, yet they are still responsible for 51% of all Bitcoin being mined today. So regardless of the sanctions that they apply on themselves, it appears there's some rule breakers within those countries' borders. And as I look at what it does for other countries around the world, the main difference is, and you'll understand and appreciate this more than anyone else, is that when we look at where the digital asset space is today, the majority of this space is unregulated. We are moving into an era where the majority of these assets, they're not only regulated, but they're being endorsed by large financial institutions. So there's 3 countries around the world right now that lead when it comes to Bitcoin holdings. Number 1 is the United States. We currently hold over 200,000 units of Bitcoin that has been confiscated by cyber criminals, for lack of a better word. The number 2 spot is China, with 19,000 Bitcoin currently sitting at their government. And the 3rd spot, which is only a couple thousand Bitcoin here, it is London. But why is that relevant? Because London is one of the largest financial sectors on the planet. So it's no coincidence to me at all that we've got the United States, China, and London already having these assets on their balance sheets, which is very interesting.
Wow. Well, do you see more coming in? I mean, obviously the Bitcoin conference was in Abu Dhabi. Do you see the Emirates coming in? Do you see, I mean, how does it, one of the things I read a while back, and I'm just riffing here with it because I'm sorry, I geek out whenever you crypto guys come on. I just love it. It's just but if I recall, even in the Middle East, there is some Islamic strictures that the currency has to be connected to gold or some kind of actual commodity. But yet they're even playing around with that a little bit, and they have some Bitcoin, so forth, that is connected with gold. Do you have any information on that?
I do. So what I think is interesting is a lot of people get confused, right? They start with Bitcoin and they think that all of these digital assets have the same use cases and the same underlying technology. That's actually not the case. Some of these assets are directly correlated to the value of a gold or a silver or some underlying asset as well. And we can go through this later in the show if you'd find it valuable. But the real evolution here, the real purpose of blockchain is to give people more access to their own money. We need to stop lending out our money and giving control of the money to the banks. And we can focus on that if you'd like, or I can go into use cases, totally up to you.
It's so neat because that actually leads me right to my next question. Is I'm just curious what you see really as the true value of Bitcoin, in particular, crypto in general, because I think a lot of people misunderstand just the civilizational significance of crypto. I mean, I was talking with someone granted they were a bit older, but it's not money. It's not real money. You know, they just don't quite understand. For me, the key that I've been fascinated by, and I see this theme coming back over and over again, is how it involves the separation between finance and state, which goes right along with your idea of the evolution of finance, where states can no longer use currency as a weapon for their own political ends. This is talk about empowering the people. It's beyond anything. What do you see as crypto's sort of true value, and why more and more of the worldwide population is being so attracted to it?
You know what I find really interesting about your response is you started off this video with Elizabeth Warren. And for any of your listeners who are new to this space, she is the largest crypto contrarian inside the United States. And I do want to give a shout out to my friend John Deaton, who ran as a Republican candidate against Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. Now, obviously, he lost. We can debate how that took place. But the reality is that I believe it's 70% of all people in the House today have pro-crypto policies. So we're already in this next era for digital assets. And you asked me where I think this asset class is going. I'll make it very simple for your listeners. The tokenization of everything is already underway. And there are plenty of blockchains that I focus on my show in particular, which is HBAR, XRP, XLM, to give your listeners a couple. For the record, I am not sponsored by those projects. These are just projects that I love the technology. But when I look at the tokenization of financial assets, we're talking about every stock, every bond, US treasuries. The use cases are essentially limitless. And it actually gives the holders like BlackRock, for example, more control of these assets. So there's incentive for us because we'll profit, and there's incentive for BlackRock because they gain control.
Wow. And it just fits in with the eventual rise of Web 3.0, right? And blockchain replacing everything else, so that ownership ends up becoming the key characteristic, as opposed to just being able to post or something akin to that. I know too, the Brentwood economic system, particularly after World War II, that more or less financed globalization around the world. It seems to me there's two finances that really do get around the Bretton Woods system and the weaponization that can be used. Historically, gold on the one hand, since it got kicked out of that system, and crypto on the other, which I geek out on, because scholars are talking about like the future is supposed to be archeo future. So we're going back to tradition while at the same time just going gung ho on technology. So the more technological we become, the more traditionalist we end up becoming. The more traditionalist, the more technological. So it's more like Star Wars than Star Trek. Star Wars, very mystical, and so forth. Where Star Trek, it's just purely secular and the like. But it does seem that this archeo future, the way you're saying it, it's financially, it's almost already here. We're kind of breaking out of this old industrialized Bretton Woods system, and what crypto really represents the finance of the future that's come forward into time and is realized right now.
And we actually have the opportunity to front run the big money, the large pools of capital, for the first time ever. If this was the internet bubble, we'd be looking at the projects that were being built and trying to chase the large institutions. Now it's the other way around. A lot of these technologies are underutilized for the time being, and we're yet to enter the era where digital assets are being used for their true use cases. So if I could highlight this and make it very clear, you are still early. If this is your first time hearing about cryptocurrency, there's plenty of opportunity in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that leads me perfect to what I wanted to ask you. So I get a lot of our listeners, as we have our listeners getting into crypto. That is happening. I'm really excited for them. Me too. It's in the last 2 years, I've been geeking. I told you before the interview, I used my first Bitcoin ATM successfully the other day. I was so pumped. I was like, this is great. In a local liquor store. I said, hey, I'm just going to throw in a couple of bucks and boom, it happened. It was amazing. So for our listeners out there who would love to get in on the action, but they're a little intimidated, the technology behind it, they've never done it before. They've never done anything with Bitcoin or crypto. Abdullah, give us a little bit of a few action items anyone could take right now to start wading into getting involved here.
First thing I'd like to do is just tell people why Bitcoin is here to stay. Bitcoin is a finite asset. There's 21 million Bitcoin. There'll never be more than 21 million Bitcoin, right? Even with gold, we consider it a finite asset. That is because we are required by law to not mine more than 2% of circulating supply per year. I believe I'm correct on that, Dr. Turley, right? Just to validate. So
I don't know the answer to it, but I'm going to defer to you for sure.
Since I'm the one saying it, I'll give myself that validation, right? So the reason that Bitcoin is going to go up forever is because we're infinitely printing money. I highlighted this earlier. 60% of all US dollars in circulation entered the market after 2019. There's a reason that the 1 percenters in America, their average salary went from $440,000 to over $735,000 in only 4 years. That is not because they became more valuable. That is because the money became less valuable. Now, how can that work in our favor? Many of these emerging asset classes, like our parents, for example, what they were told is that they could buy a house for $10,000. And that house, because it's in the American market and it's a priority, it will increase in value. Well, Bitcoin is that new priority, that new gold standard for this emerging asset class. So your question was, where can people go to learn more about this technology? First of all, I guess I'll plug my show. Good Morning Crypto is the place to learn about these digital assets. And we're going to dive into a lot more topics besides Bitcoin. We're going to try to make our listeners aware of the emerging financial system and how this extends to every single angle and every single aspect of our economy today will inevitably be impacted by blockchain. But there's a couple simple steps you can take. First of all, figure out what Bitcoin is. Are you an American citizen or do you live outside the United States? It is extremely simple as an American citizen to register for a Coinbase account or an Uphold or any exchange and get a little bit of exposure. I also like to promote the idea that nobody gets rich overnight. And I've been in this asset class for the better half of a decade. I entered in late 2019, and I had this perception that, in 2021, I was become a Bitcoin millionaire, right? For lack of a better term. Patience is the name of the game here. Building these portfolios in a bear market and putting in $25 every Friday, $100, whatever the number is for yourself. That is how you gain wealth in this space. There's no shortcuts, and crypto's no different. But just to give you a quick synopsis, I would look into the technologies, I would sign up for an exchange, and I would create a plan for yourself. Are you holding these assets for 10 years? Are you holding these assets for 2 years? Do you have the goal of making $10,000 or do you have the goal of making $100,000? These are going to require different mindsets and different plans. And again, our show is a great place to interact with like-minded individuals where we discuss these topics every day.
Yeah, that's what I love. And I love following your X feed as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it just helps, it is yeah, it's intimidating at first for people. It's I guess in many ways it's like, when the internet first came on or email first came on, everyone's like, how does it work? Or, what do I do? What if somebody sees my letter or when I send there's just so much uncertainty. Now we don't even think twice about it. And I think something like that is starting to happen with crypto. Yeah, I do through Coinbase. I couldn't agree with you more on that. For me, that was the easiest one, just on my phone. Just download the app and boom, you're good to go. I mean, you link up your bank account. You just start buying crypto, whatever you want to do there. And I love the way you stay so informed on these topics and help us better understand this very mysterious world for a lot of people, but also an incredibly exciting world, and one that's changing and that's growing by leaps and bounds so fast. And now it's like, breathe the fresh air of freedom, as Gandalf would say.
I love that. And you know what? I want to actually use a use case as an example for your listeners who may not understand what is the utility behind some of this technology. Well, right now, you talked about the Bretton Woods standard in modern day banking. Right now, there is a monopoly in America, and that monopoly is the banking system. Whether you'd like to send money internationally or you'd like to receive a pay stub from your workplace, you have to go through the banks. That is where crypto changes the entire system. Because for the first time ever, guys like me and you have the ability to not only control our assets, but send and receive those assets without permission. We do not have to ask JP Morgan. We do not have to go to Bank of America. And let me give you another example of this. There's a company, Ripple, out there that leverages the XRP ledger. And they have a great analogy that they often use during their presentations, where they talk about how if you're going to send $1 million from New York to London today, the fastest way to do that is to get on a plane with $1 million in cash and fly it across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's true.
And this is where blockchain solves that problem. Now, not only do you have to go through the traditional banks, you can say, JP Morgan, I'm not even going to talk to you about this transaction. Instead, I'm going to send that money directly from my account to Dr. Turley's account in London for almost no charge and instantaneously. Whereas in the traditional system right now, we have about a 7% fail rate on transactions, and it can take 3 to 7 days to send money international. So long story short, crypto will make money move like data moves on the internet today.
That's brilliant. That is so brilliant. Yes, it's like, right, we bypass the banks like texting and email bypasses the post office.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's brilliant, Abdullah. I mean, to have and just think of the possibility of wealth creation when money can move that way. It's stunning. I'm curious, before we close, Saylor talks about, in terms of the golden age, he talks a lot about how, yes, we're the reserve currency of the world, but with Bitcoin, and particularly this upcoming Bitcoin reserve, we can end up becoming sort of the asset owners of the world. Have you looked into the so we have our money, we have currency, but then we're also looking for long store values of investment to be able to keep our money and grow our money. The United States has more or less a monopoly on the former, but not necessarily the latter. We're the world's reserve currency, but people, the world is investing in all kinds of long-term stores of value. But with Bitcoin, if we get ahead of the game there, all of a sudden the United States can be the number one, the king in both reserve currency and in terms of investments. What's your thoughts on that?
You know what I love about that narrative is I think Donald Trump kind of took advantage of this earlier in his campaign, is that this market is $3.5 trillion. Only 24 months ago, this market was $800 billion in value. In the summer of 2022, this was an $800 billion market. Damn. So it just goes to show how quickly things can change. And what I think Donald Trump has taken advantage of here is that if this market is about to go from $3.5 trillion to $10 trillion, which is what the analysts are estimating here, why not let Americans profit off of that growth? Why would we not incentivize Americans to take advantage of this emerging technology class and not only gain wealth, but dominate and create the future of finance within our borders? I'm a big proponent of the American dream. And this is something that I've become a lot more in tune with as I get older, is that America is still the greatest country on the planet, but we have to work to maintain that. We can't allow our global competitors to take advantage of something that is as important as our new financial system. So it's either us or it's our competitors. And I think Donald Trump understands it's better for everybody if the United States citizens are the one who get that wealth.
Abdullah Nassif of Good Morning Crypto, an amazing podcast you're going to have to avail yourself of. You're going to love it. Click on the link below to subscribe to what they're doing there. And then check them out on X as well, on all over social media. This is amazing stuff, gang. This is the wave of the future. It's here, as Abdullah is pointing out to us. The future is now. It's actually happening now. And this is part of a new golden era, and we're on the forefront of it, and it's absolutely amazing stuff. Let's have you back, because I mean, I could talk to you for hours, dude. This is so awesome.
I would love to come back, and I just want to say thanks again. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and it's been so interesting. As the show has grown, I've become in touch with much more like-minded individuals like yourself. There's nothing I'd rather do than sit down and have a conversation, so that sounds amazing, and thanks again.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll have you back real soon, Abdullah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.